Hello and welcome to the pod live, day two of the draft. I'm Oscar Hazel and joined with Ian Wharton again. The Dolphins, well, they made two moves today, so moving back with the Eagles and acquiring two fifth-round picks, as well as giving up 6 rounds, so now they'll have four fifth-round picks, and then they drafted Oklahoma nose tackle 1-0 tech. Jordan Phillips. So I guess like the first thing this kind of says is they don't like Earl Mitchell to me, is because that's where the snaps are going. If Phillips does see the field much, he's going to be taking Earl Mitchell snaps. They play the same position, and that's a position that is approximately 450 snaps a season. If you're going by kind of the last 3 years of Coyle. So that's kind of like I guess the big picture look at it. What's your take on like his fit and the player himself?
I love the fit. Just as in terms of what we saw from Miami last year, they were clearly worried about that nose position, that one tech, and a 4-3 front. They needed someone to eat blocks down the stretch, and due to injuries or just being worn down with workload, whatever it may be, Randy Starks and Earl Mitchell, those guys just weren't able to hold it down for what Miami needed. And I think they saw Jordan Phillips as a guy. He's very young player, third-year sophomore, 1 year of experience on the playing field, and even then, he's a nose tackle, so he's only going to play 30 to 40% of snaps to start. So he's a project, and I think that it's a scary term to say that, but realistically, he's happy to eat blocks, and I think that some people may say that's laziness. Some people, and I'm not going to argue that. I mean, it is what it is. You want to see him hopefully work to get better. We don't really know if he will work to get better or not. I mean, I'm not going to go either way on that. The fact of the matter is, of course, you want him to work to get better, and I think that's at the very least he can be a one tech. He can be a guy that just eats blocks while you've got your defensive ends single blocked, and then you've got Sue hopefully single blocked. So that's a dream for a defensive coordinator, because all of a sudden now you've got your best pass rushers one-on-one, maybe with the running back chipping or something. You want the offense to hopefully get as much resources to stopping that front four as possible. So, I can easily sell that pick. That's the positive side of it. If he develops a pass rush, he could be phenomenal. He's got a long way to go. His hands are unrefined. He does show good strength. Just from his 1 year of experience. I liked his quickness overall. I thought that there were times where he really showed his athleticism, not really as a pass rusher so much, but moving up and down the line of scrimmage. I think that there's a lot to work with there. It's just going to take time. He's not a fifth-year senior. So you look at the fifth-year seniors, and if I was saying this about a fifth-year senior, I'd be scared to death. But I'm saying it about a third-year sophomore. It's not a guy that has the repetitions to really be refined yet, and we have to accept that. Doesn't matter what position, and especially at nose tackle. Nose tackles take forever to develop. So, is it a great pick? I don't think it's a great pick for 2015, and there's definitely a risk with him. It's just this draft. It really is this draft. We saw it all throughout day two. There were a lot of reaches. There were a lot of guys that had 5th, 6th, 7th round grades going in 2nd round. And it's just one of those things where these teams don't love this draft. And so they're going to take their guy, just take him and not even worry about it. And I think that's okay, as long as the player ends up working out. There were some other really good players available, and I think that's where the issue comes in. But they're trying to build something on defense, and I can see their vision. I really can.
Well, I guess before I start completely shitting on him, I guess we'll say like where people talk about him being a good athlete, and maybe this is kind of where it differs from when you normally talk about an interior defensive lineman and they talk about an athlete. They'll talk about them being upfield, penetrative, like first step quickness. he doesn't possess much of that for me. More of his athleticism is kind of is evident in pursuit, kind of chasing down things. He's a fluid mover for his size. Once he's got going, but there's not kind of like a burst or a first step, so that kind of projects him, in my eyes, not to be a great pass rusher. I think he's got heavy hands at times, but you don't see it enough. He's got a couple of, like a little swim move that's effective. He can, I think I saw a spin or move a couple of times or so, but that's not going to be his wheelhouse really early on, or but maybe not in like the next couple of years. Generally, nose tackles, one techs, they have, and Miami have like a good history of this with Paul Soliai. They have a long time before they develop. So that's kind of my issue with drafting nose tackles unless they are already developed. You're paying a premier price for kind of dead years of development. Whereas if you get them in a free agency, then that's the prime of a nose tackle, is their 4th to 8th year, generally speaking, unless you get kind of, there's obviously players like Dontari Poe who would, you would maybe look at Phillips' kind of body type, and that would be kind of his ceiling, but I don't think he has that kind of pass rush ability to be on the field more than kind of run downs. He had, like, I think it was the Tennessee game, is like the tape people who want to like him should watch, and like don't watch anything else. Especially don't watch TCU. He's just basically stationary, just stands there. He's just head on the center the whole game and just basically plays pat a cake with him and just stands there. So he has some really bad film. There's a lot of the excuses for his film, or kind of like reasoning for particularly why he doesn't play much, along with kind of like his position, has been kind of a back injury. I believe he's had back surgery as well. So that's kind of a worry for a big player, young player as well. Back injuries can generally take a while. So even though I was trying to be positive then, I kind of bagged on him more than not. Have you got anything else to kind of say, or like, how do you think Mitchell's going to be used now? Do you think Mitchell's still going to be the primary nose tackle, and maybe Phillips gets kind of, I guess in the first 4 weeks we may have like a couple of second half of the games where it's kind of over, so you can kind of give him pass rush reps then, because when you're having reserves in, they're not as likely going to be running the ball. So kind of how do you think Mitchell now lies? And I guess there's still a need at a free technique, really, unless they're projecting Coleman to be molding him in kind of an Orderic way, in which they're turning it 5 tech to 3 tech instead of a nose tackle.
Yeah, and maybe that's where they add, with one of those 4 5th rounders, they maybe address the 3 tech, whoever's falling, or maybe even the 4th round pick.
Like Ches or a Bennett if he's still there.
Yeah, and we're seeing those guys fall to injury. Not Nunez Roches or whatever his name is.
Or Hardison, the Arizona State kid they've been really interested in, so he could be a guy.
Exactly. So there's a lot of value. With Mitchell, I think we're going to see him get the bulk of the snaps early. Phillips probably gets 200, maybe a little bit more snaps this year. And I know that's going to be disappointing for people to hear, especially, about looking at the offensive line. People are freaked out about Thomas, and I understand that. I would have taken Ali Marpet. However, here's the thing, and I was talking with an NFL guy the other day, and he said to me, if your offense is broken by one bad guard, you've got bigger issues than just that one guard. And if you look at the offensive line last year, it wasn't just one guard that broke it. It was 3 different positions that were broken. And as long as, people
at times.
For the most part, James at left tackle was a mess, but he should have never been there. James should have never been at left tackle. Fox should have been in there. Thomas should have never been at right tackle. It should have been James over there. So, Pouncey was bad at guard. Satele was bad at center. And the left guard situation was a mess for half the season.
Yeah.
So, if Miami keeps guys where they should be, then left guard shouldn't be an issue. He's going to have Mike Pouncey next to him, and Pouncey's not elite, but he can help on pass plays. Like, that's going to be his role. He's a pretty decent helper on pass plays. Like, I like him a lot more on pass plays than I do at guard, just because he can help. He can just slide over to Thomas every single play. Billy Turner at right guard, I have no worries about. So, and maybe that's a little bit of a leap of faith, but I'm just going to trust the eval on that for now until we see any different. The thing with Phillips and Mitchell, it's a long-term pick, and offensively, I think they add more depth to that offensive line, especially with that fourth or fifth, one of those fifth-round picks. So let's wait and see till tomorrow to fully judge that aspect of it, like the versus defensive tackle or guard. Defensive tackles, if they hit on nose tackle in the second round, it's a huge steal. Like, a good nose tackle is worth a top 10 pick. And I think they see what they want to in him in terms of projecting him a little bit, like a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. And ultimately, Miami's not used to drafting like that. And I think that that's okay. If you look at the good teams in the league, they're taking players like that, like Brandon Williams a couple years ago for Baltimore. He was definitely a project coming out. But, all of a sudden they get him into their system. They've got some guys there who can help him a little bit, coaches that can help him, and all of a sudden he's a stud. So, I think Phillips is like that same type of arc for what Miami wants. Year one may not be a big impact, but you're looking at year two. And even in year one, you're hoping that at least he can spell Mitchell enough to keep him fresh and to keep him from kind of just self-destructing down the stretch like he did.
I guess you could argue the kind of nose tackle market was kind of dying as well, with like kind of Garrett being the only other kind of player in that range, and then he's kind of more of the mold of a Mitchell, where it's kind of a undersized but like lower, thick trunk base, kind of 0-1 tech or more 1 tech. I don't think you can really play 0,
right?
Unless you have JJ Watt like Mitchell did. But that's not really an issue for Miami. I don't think we're going to see as much three-man fronts with Sue now. Although you can pretty much put Sue anywhere. I guess we can talk about the trade down. I think that was pretty good value just for the way the board was falling. There wasn't kind of anyone that had been taken before Miami picked that I think they would have had targeted. So I think they would have been comfortable moving down and not really a huge amount of play. I don't think anyone really came off significant. Maybe the only person was Eric Rowe, who Philly came up for. I think that would have been the only player they may have been targeting, but I think that would have been a best player available scenario, not a kind of addressing a certain need. So I guess, are you happy with the acquisition of an extra 4th round pick and then moving up 1 round as well in the from the 6th to the 5th, sorry, and an extra 5th?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. They knew that they could get their guy. Just kind of going back and reading reports of like visits and who they were interested in, it's very, very, very clear that I think they entered tonight knowing Phillips was their guy if he was on the board. So, I mean, you look at what other teams got. I was pretty excited when they moved down because I thought it was a great value. They ended up giving, another pick back. So it was a decent value in a trade down. Ultimately, you got another couple 5th rounders, which this isn't a deep draft. We're already seeing that. Like I've got like 3 guys that either I didn't even bother to grade or I had him as like a 7th rounder or UDFA being taken. The Patriots took a guy, I literally said he's not an NFL caliber player, Jordan Richards. I didn't bother grading him because he's small and he's not that good. So they took him in the 2nd round. So it's just one of those drafts where it's like, and I'm not saying I'm right on that. I may be totally wrong on Richards, but Mel Kiper even said the same thing. That's a 5th round talent they took in the 2nd round. It's just one of those drafts, and we have to understand that.
There's not many Rutgers players this year for the Patriots, so maybe that kind of hurts.
They missed out on Croft, so they kind of freaked out. And maybe
we'll get
Caleb
a snap
Johnson.
The Rutgers of the West.
Yeah, they'll get Caleb Johnson, and they'll get a bunch of Stanford guys. But no, so I mean, it comes down to this. would you rather have 4 5th-round picks or have 1 6th and 1 7th? I'd rather have the 5th-round picks. I'm not worried about 6th and 7th-round picks. Like, those are just complete shots in the dark. As much as we love Terrence Fide here on the pod, I don't think there's a lot of guys available this year.
There wasn't many 7th-round picks that won football games last year, so I think we hit on that one.
Yeah, that was definitely a hit, as much as MMQB hated the pick.
Yeah. So I guess the big thing that pissed me off was passing on Fisher. As I had him as one of my first rounders, so top 17 player, the most athletic offensive lineman ever to be tested in the draft through the combine. Perfect fit, perfect fit if you were to play tackle. So then kind of the issue for me is how he would fit an immediate need. But if you're looking at long-term, kind of develop him as a left tackle behind Albert and maybe spell him at left guard, in a similar way to which the Bengals have done with the players they've drafted this year, going to offensive linemen and just basically saying, oh, we can replace these tackles anytime, and kind of developing. I think we've seen in Miami, especially, kind of putting out tackles straight away doesn't necessarily end up with the best results. So I'd have loved Fisher there, even if he wasn't see the field straight away, just purely on best player available. That doesn't kind of have injury concerns. So maybe if we look, before we answer a couple of questions that people have sent in, who would you like to target to the beginning of tomorrow? So maybe we'll just start with the 4th round. And do you reckon we'll package any of those 5th rounders to get up into the 4th at all?
I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be my strategy because there's a lot of talent on the board, and I think there's going to be 4 worthy players in the 5th round. There's a lot of guys with medical, and you're sitting there in the 4th round. TJ Clemmings, man, unless if that dude's on his deathbed, I would love to add TJ Clemmings. I've got him as my 21st overall player.
It's either like a foot or a knee, and I believe it happened during a visit, and so that's why teams are really. So then a lot of teams don't have the medical on it because it happened after they had got their hands on him.
Interesting.
But I would imagine that team that it happened, they would have to inform the agent and then kind of pass on that information, or maybe they pass it on to the league.
Right.
As it happened within, and maybe that's like an insurance thing as well. Whereas I believe there was a player last year that had a similar thing where they got hurt. Was it Colvin got hurt at the Senior Bowl?
It was Colvin. Then there was someone else as well.
Hurt during a pro day, and so I believe they have to kind of give the medical reasons out to all the teams if it happens, kind of in that scenario. So perhaps that kind of lingering kind of aspect around him is why he won't be picked for a while. Because I had him as the 2nd kind of offensive lineman for the Dolphins. And then I guess Lele, his issue, I assume now, if anyone spends a pick on him, the agent won't sign. So,
and you know what? And maybe that's something that Miami wants to do after the draft. As soon as the draft's over, you can give him whatever deal that you want. So
as long as in your rookie pool, you have to have the right amount. Obviously, not having a 3rd round pick kind of makes your rookie pool a slightly larger.
Right, and so maybe something that Miami's doing, and I'm not saying that I know anything about this, but if I'm Miami, I
think offer him a 1-year deal.
Offer him a 1-year deal. As big as you possibly can. Obviously guarantees. That needs to be worded. So that Miami's protected. But yeah, absolutely. If you can get La'el Collins and say, look, here's the deal. We'll give you a 1-year deal. If this goes aside, we'll be more than open to give you, the value of like a 1st or 2nd round pick next year. I think that that's something that should absolutely be in the cards. I mean, obviously, I mean, we don't know exactly what happened with him, but it's ludicrous. I think what's happened, just based off of public information, and he's easily the best guard in terms of healthy guards that are left.
So maybe should we just do kind of 5 players each we'd want to see in the 4th round, and I guess like the top 5 players you have, and then I'll do mine. We'll probably have a couple that cross over.
Yeah, like I said, TJ Clemmings. I just think he's overwhelmingly the most talented fit right now. Jay Ajayi from Boise State, again, another injury flag, but 4th round, we saw it with Lamar Miller. This is where you take injury risks. A lot of these guys fall to this range. They're cheap to get rid of if they're not healthy, but ultimately Ajayi's been healthy for 4 years. I'm not really worried too much about a second contract for him. David Cobb out of Minnesota, again, if they want a running back, great value. Seriously, a fantastic value in the 4th round. I'm kind of surprised he lasted this long. Just kind of looking at my rankings here.
I can throw out some whilst you look through. So I'll go Michael Bennett as a free technique.
Yeah.
I think he'd be really good. Then he'd be probably the last. Him or Hardison would be kind of the 2 defensive tackles. So if Bennett goes, then Hardison I think would be good value in that range. Harrison, A&M guard. He's got some off the field stuff, but his tape's really good. He's an incredible athlete. Generally, players with his kind of makeup don't fail in the NFL. Ifo just probably would be the perfect fit. You can nurture him a little bit with the amount of kind of mediocre depth the Dolphins have, and you hope kind of Jamar Taylor plays well, takes on spot, then maybe Ifo takes over Grimes' spot in a year or 2 or a year and a half, whenever Grimes kind of hangs it up, and then Charles Gaines, the corner as well. So he would be a little bit more useful earlier on. I'm not really sure what Ifo's kind of health kind of trajectory is looking like, but I'd imagine he probably would go on PUP if not IR for the whole year. But I think he'll be, if he plays like he did in 2013, he would have been a 1st round pick. So I think you can risk that kind of a day 4 pick in this kind of class quite happily. And I think that would be, maybe Josh Shaw, because he could play corner, he could play safety. He's kind of versatile. He has those off the field jumping out of a window stuff, but I don't like. He was really good when he played corner. I know the spring game at USC he was playing safety, so USC were going to move him there as well. So I think he had some versatility. Have you got any more guys, or should we answer a couple of questions?
Yeah, I'll throw into Rand Grant out of Ohio State. I really like what he did as a senior, and then I would also throw out Trey Jackson from Florida State. I don't know if he's really. I go back and forth with his scheme versatility, but I think Harrison is probably my preference, like you mentioned, Texas A&M. But I'd be happy with Trey Jackson as well. I mean, I think that guy can play, and ultimately that's kind of what you need. So.
I'll take Mark Lewinsky, shout out to his dad, who I know follows, and Jamil Douglas, who I've liked for a while. He's just nasty in the run game, real fast hands. So I think there would be no-brainers if they fall maybe to the 5th with like a Jamil or a Lewinsky. We had one question about Max Garcia from Eric. About whether he could play guard. He passed my metric for the Dolphins, which is pretty hard to do for offensive line, because I've got it down to a fine art with the offensive line, just with the kind of the amount of data. I kind of have him after Trey, so kind of a high 4th rounder. But there's probably 7 players, including Lele and TJ above at the moment. And then Sean Hickey as just a tackle kind of prospect, the tackle out of Syracuse. But I think I mean, I kind of went back and forth with Garcia. I don't think he's ideal for them. They do like a bit more height and length at the position, and we've seen, especially with Philbin's history, they prefer taking a tackle and moving them inside if they are, and that's kind of a real Green Bay like kind of tradition is you take a left tackle because that's going to be the best player on that line every time. Have you got any Garcia takes?
I thought he was more of a power system fit. I never considered him a zone system fit. I know weight wise, he's in that range. Just kind of how he moves, though, I don't really see him being smooth enough. He looked better at center to me than guard. So I like the talent a lot. I'm not sure if it's a great fit, at least in my opinion.
He's kind of like he was like a Leo guy for me, where it's like
he's right in the middle there.
He like passed, and I was like, there was players I thought would pass that didn't pass. So then the ones that did, and I was like, it was a technique issue, or just like a length issue, like a cleaning up their lower body issue, technique-wise, that like bucket steps and stuff like that. I kind of gave them the pass, assuming like the coaching staff would, if like the board's getting this thin anyway with this kind of parameters that I've set, that I assuming they have from history. And we had one question, I believe it was from, I can't remember, it was this morning, but it was about DeVante Parker and kind of which positions he can line up on. What's kind of, I guess, like most people are just going to assume he's going to be playing outside, probably X receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess with DeVante, always kind of the main criticism is getting off press. The Dolphins do scheme up getting off press like quite a lot with bunch
really well.
motions.
They're totally used to that. Right.
Yeah. For me, that's basically a trait I like took off my grading scale because it's almost irrelevant to the Dolphins. They'll motion everyone, they'll stack everyone. They basically scheme to get free releases. DeVante does project to be able to get off releases quite well with his kind of like his foot speed at like the line of scrimmage, even though he's only got one or two kind of releases at the moment. Kind of those flashes show that he could probably have more. But I could see them pretty much moving everyone everywhere. I can see, other than maybe, I don't think we'll see Stills in the slot, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't think we'll see Stills in the slot.
No,
and every other player is going to go over. Just across the middle, he can't do it. Maybe he'll be, if he's in the slot, he's going to be vertical routes, posts, and fades, and that's. But I kind of doubt they're even going to do that, or maybe like an out route. But you don't want him going across traffic. He kind of body catches that scenario. Whereas I think with DeVante, you can, because of his physical nature, his kind of body control, you can throw him across the middle. Obviously, Greg Jennings and Landry, that's kind of like their wheelhouse. Maybe when you have Cameron in the slot, that's going to be more vertical game. And I think we'll see Cameron outside a lot. But have you got any thoughts on where DeVante is going to be lining up?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was talking to Paul Picken earlier, and I told him this really for me is their Jordy Nelson, and I'm not saying I'm not saying he's got that type of talent level. I really hate it when people try to compare like prospects to like elite players at their position. So I don't want to say talent-wise he'll get there, because that's crazy expectations. Jordy Nelson is fantastic, but look at how they use him. I think that's how Miami's going to use Parker in a similar scheme, and I think he can be a very effective player. And like you said, they're used to moving guys around, keeping press off of these guys. It's not like Hartline or Wallace or Gibson were good at breaking press. So they're totally used to this. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to be an issue really with press.
Or maybe before we go, should we just kind of go through understanding comps? because that's kind of like something that gets really, I think, misunderstood or misinterpreted. So like a lot of people will compare a player to their ceiling and what they could be. But very often then that's jumped to that's what they should be year one, in kind of a misinterpretation. So I think AJ Green and Jordy Nelson have kind of always been the ceiling comps for Devontae Parker, but that's not to say that he will be an outstanding outside, like a top 10 receiver next year. But if he, like, given a couple of years, if he reaches his potential, that's his ceiling. So I think that's, like, I always try and make a point of, when giving a comparison, to give like a ceiling when it's a comparison for a ceiling, say it's a ceiling. When it's a comparison for a floor, say it's a floor. Just to give kind of context to what the player's ability is, or kind of, and I mean, quite often there'll be one or two traits that the player has that are that comparison and not their whole game. And so maybe people need to kind of illustrate that better, or we as readers need to understand that more. But have you got any kind of hot takes on comparisons?
No. I think you did a good job.
Okay. So we didn't do great with our prediction yesterday of a trade back. Oh, we got half of it right. We got trade back,
We got
but not
trade
market.
back. Yeah.
Okay. So, what's your prediction for tomorrow? Prospects and motions.
I really, really, really hope that they keep all their picks. I'm not confident in it, but I hope they keep them. And my only prediction will be that they do much more need-based drafting tomorrow. I think that we'll see a lineman. I think we'll see a defensive back. I think we'll see a linebacker and a running back. I think tomorrow is going to be the day where fans are pretty happy because they're going to be checking off the boxes. And there's a lot of value at all those spots. Like, Miami can legitimately walk away from day 3 with a very, very good haul.
And you're getting special teamers there, which we're kind of lacking on. Kind of with that, especially with the exodus from like the core linebacker, the like backup linebackers were pretty much the core of our special team, and then players like Jimmy Wilson and I can't really think of us, but mainly the linebackers. So you kind of need to more replace that. But I mean, you got Paysinger and people like that; they can do that. I thought it was interesting that they were hyping up. So on kind of Twitter, the beat writers hyping up Paysinger and Billy Turner, and then even Lickenback as kind of like, if they don't have a guard in the draft, these are kind of options. So obviously the team were doing some kind of on the spot PR remedy to the nose tackle pick. So that'll be kind of interesting what happens with, especially the O-line. Because I think there's realistically 5 guys they could go after and be kind of happy with. There's Bunch as well. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, who would be like the last guy I'd like. But I mean, I had him just under Donovan Smith, who went so high. So
that was pretty surprising.
It's a crazy draft. So I'll throw out some prospects as well. Screw it. Let's say I think they go Charles Gaines in the 4th, then Fua, the linebacker from BYU. Let's go for Glowinski because his dad watches, or at least follows. So I think that's, and one more, and Jake Ryan. Let's go, another linebacker, the Michigan player, for Stephen Ross. He needs to get some. Is Kovacs still on the roster?
I think he is.
Okay, yeah, well, they need some more. He'll probably not be on it for long, so let's get
I think that's a good name. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them add Jake Ryan. And I don't think that'd be a bad pick either. I mean, he's not like a starter, but he can be a good player. He's kind of like kind of like an advanced version of Chesnick, a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. Or maybe Wes Saxon might be a name to watch. I know.
I forgot about him.
Jeremiah was really high on him. I think it was his last mock draft. He was like second round to the Packers.
I don't know what he bought from whoever, but oof.
That scared me because
thank goodness he was wrong, man. That would have been ugly. Like for whoever took him, that would have been ugly.
Because I was going to think it was going to be like someone from the Green Bay tree kind of coming down. Mm-hmm. So I was worried, and I knew Dolphins had interest. I was like, oh shit.
Oof, God, that would have been if people didn't like Phillips.
Yeah. Have you got anything, any like other take from the draft day 2? Should we bugger off?
Just real quick, I'll throw off some hot takes.
Okay.
I really hated the start of the second round. Buccaneers, Raiders, Jaguars. There's a reason why your franchises suck. And I mean, yeah.
The Browns did well.
The Browns are the most interesting team I think so far. So I love their talent. I love the guys that they got. Yeah, I love Duke. I love Cameron Irving. I like Danny Shelton. I mean, you look at the players individually, and if you put them on like any other team with this draft, it's a home run. I just look at the Browns, and I'm like, you guys literally filled one need in the first 3 rounds.
So they're doing it right. They're doing it how we all say you should draft best player available.
And it's so weird to see that
freaking people out. They can't take that the best player might actually already be a position where you already have a center who's the best in the league, or you may already have 2 running backs that looked like semi-competent that are young. So yeah, it's really funny to see people like, this is terrible, but oh wait, this is like Duke Johnson. I know like people like Carl Posey had as his top running back. So it's like people love Duke Johnson.
Yeah, he's my number 2. Yeah, and it wasn't too far behind Gurley either.
He had him 3rd, just behind Abdullah, and I felt they were pretty much the same grade. They were like really similar prospects to me, where they're kind of like 3 down backs. You can use them everywhere. But yeah, it'll be so I guess not a great day personally for me after my good predicting, and I wasn't allowed to gamble today. The bookies wouldn't take any money over here anymore on predicting the position, so that's a shame.
Yeah.
And the draft starts in like 11 hours, so we'll do another show after the 7th round. It should be kind of a big gap between when the Dolphins' last pick is from then, so you can have a meal, sleep, or something. Because I doubt they'll be moving out of the 6th round to get more 7th round picks, unless they were maybe move a 6th round pick to get a future 5th, something like that. And then maybe we see kind of a pick get swapped for a veteran, like Mathis. He's been kind of reported to be available for kind of a 3rd day pick, so maybe sending back one of those 6ths to the Eagles would work. Or they package maybe like a future pick and a couple of 6ths for Mathis and Mikael Kendrick, something like. Perhaps that's in like the motions. Obviously, they've got an open dialogue having moved down with the Eagles.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was wondering if maybe they would throw in one of the vets into that trade, and I don't think it's good.
I think it's just too tough to do in that shorter time.
Yeah,
I guess we saw it in the 2nd day, didn't we? Or was it the first round?
First round, yeah, late first round.
But then maybe that kind of groundwork was set before.
Right.
Especially as it came straight after the Dolphins, where kind of that was the floor for Gurley. So then you'd assume they knew if they were to take Gordon, they had to take him there because one running back was gone. So maybe that was kind of groundwork trade. and why a player was involved. Anyway, you can listen to this if you missed any of it, probably by tomorrow morning at MiamiPod on Twitter, themiamipod.com. You can follow Ian at NFL Film Study, and he's doing Cardinals stuff at Bleacher Report. So check that out if you want to see what Bird Gang's up to. I'm going to down this beer and then try and sleep for an hour or so. Right. Thanks for listening, and see you tomorrow.